A very good morning, dear children. Today we will continue with chapter 6, Animal Classification. If you remember in the last class, this was the last chart which we had discussed, where I introduced you all to the new system of classification, to the new classification. I told you that the entire animal kingdom is divided into 10 phylum. And I also mentioned that we will be discussing each phylum in detail. So today we will be discussing the first 9 phylums. Okay, that is phylum Porifera, Coelenterata, Platyhelminthes, Aschelminthes, Annelida, Arthropoda, Mollusca, Echinodermata, Hemichordata. So this is what we will be discussing today. In the next class we will be discussing about phylum Chordata because it has many different examples in it. So the first one we are going to start with is phylum Porifera. The word Porifera has been originated from Latin, where pori means pore or any opening and fera means bearing. So these are the animals which have the simplest body plan and they contain pores in them. They are commonly called as sponges. They have two pores. First is ostia and the second is oscula. So there is a difference between both of them. Ostia is the pore that is present on the external surface of these animals, and ostia is through which they actually intake the food or they actually feed through that. What they do is they absorb water, and along with water various organisms also enter these pores. Once the organisms have been consumed, the remaining water is thrown out through the osculum. So ostia is for intake, whereas osculum is for throwing away the waste matter. The pores are normally lined up by various cells which are also called as collar cells. These are the animals which normally contain spongin. Spongin is a fiber which actually gives it shape and also makes sure that these animals remain upright, okay, and they don't collapse. And spicules are the little spikes which are present on the body of these animals. Porifera normally is attached to the substratum, that is there is going to be one layer down onto which these are attached, and that is why they do not move, or you can say there is no locomotion in these animals, and they reproduce by budding. That is, a small bud will arise on the surface and then eventually it will grow up into a new organism. They even show the property of regeneration. Regeneration means if any part of the body is cut, then that part can again give rise to the entire organism. Okay, the examples are Hyloneuma, Euspongia, that is a bath sponge. Now in the earlier days this was a sponge which was used for bathing. Because of its spongy nature, it was able to hold on to a lot of water, and it was also used as a wetting material, especially for those people who had the occupation or who were in the job of counting currency notes. So to make sure that the hands are wet so that it becomes simple for counting currency, this was normally used. We have the cycon and we have Euplectella. So these are the examples of sponges which are included in the phylum of Porifera. Second is phylum Coelenterata or Cnidaria. Coelenterata can be divided into two: cele, which means hollow, and enterata means intestine. So these are the organisms or the animals which have hollow intestine. Okay, now these are the animals which can be seen in two forms. Either they are like cylindrical shaped, otherwise they are umbrella shaped. If the animal is cylindrical, then it will be called as polyp, and if it is umbrella, it will be called as medusa. These are the animals which are radially symmetrical. Now if you know this, if we'll do a quick revision, radially symmetrical means you can actually have many equal parts if many axes are drawn through this, and they are diploblastic, which means that they arise from two main layers, that is endoderm and ectoderm. Okay. Now they have tentacles. Tentacles are the structures which you see at the top, which is being labeled as tentacles. The tentacles contain nidoblast. Now nidoblast is basically used by this to either capture the prey, that is to kill any of the prey. Otherwise it is used to inject toxin into the body. It can either be injecting it into the prey, otherwise injecting it into the enemy's body. So nidoblast is used by these animals either to capture the prey so that nutrition can be obtained. Otherwise, if it knows that it is in danger, then it will inject the toxin through the nidoblast into the enemy's body. The examples are Hydra and Physalia. Now Physalia is also called as Portuguese man of war. Why it is called this is because this is the animal which part of it remains up, that is it's going to sit on the water, and the tentacles are underwater, and it attacks its enemies through these tentacles. So it's almost like it appears to be like a warship. That is why it's called as a Portuguese man of war. You have Aurelia, that is jellyfish, and you have corals. Now coral reef is the powder of it is being used in Ayurveda also. Phylum Platyhelminthes. Now here platy means flat and helminth means worm. So all the flat worms are normally being included in this phylum. These are the animals which are flat, or they may even have structures like the leaf or the strip. They are endoparasites. Endoparasites means that they absorb nutrition from the host by entering inside the body of the host. That is why it's called as endo. That means inside, and parasitic means it's going to absorb nutrition. So endoparasites these are. They don't have coelom or body cavity, that is why they are acoelomate. And if you try to draw a line from the center, you can actually divide the entire body into two equal halves. That means they have bilateral symmetry. They arise from three germ layers, that is they have endoderm, ectoderm and mesoderm. That is why they are called as triploblastic. Now one very important characteristic about Platyhelminthes is they are hermaphrodite. Hermaphrodite basically means that they have both male reproductive system and female reproductive system in the same body. So when you're looking at it, you cannot actually say that whether it's a male or a female. Why? Because they have both reproductive systems together in the same body. So examples are planaria, liver fluke and flatworm. So these are flatworm or tapeworm. So these are the examples of the animals that are included in Platyhelminthes. Phylum Aschelminthes. The word Aschelminthes can be joined to two. Asch, which means sac, and helminth means bird. So it is believed that these are the worms which have fluid-filled sac in them. They are long, thread-like and cylindrical, and they are normally termed as round worm. These have one special characteristic, that they are round worms, but they do not have any kind of segments on them. So it's like one tube-like structure. These also are endoparasites, which means that they are going to absorb nutrition by entering inside the body of the host cell. They are triploblastic, which means that they develop from three layers: endoderm, ectoderm and mesoderm, and they have a false body cavity, which means they are pseudocoelomates. They have very thick cuticle, that is the outermost layer or the skin of it is extremely tough. Okay, and they are not hermaphrodites. That means they are going to be having male worms and they are going to be female worms. The examples are Ascaris, which is an intestinal worm. You have filarial worm, which is normally it infects the skin. And we have the eye worm, which is also called as loya. Coming to phylum Annelida. Now the word Annelida basically means ringed worm or segmented worm. It looks like there are many rings which are arranged one upon the other to form the worm. That is why it's called as Annelida. These are those worms which have segments on their body, okay, and each segment is going to be same. So that is why it's called as metamerically segmented, which means every organ in every segment is going to be the same. These are ectoparasites. Ectoparasites means they are going to be infecting the surface of the host. They will not be entering inside the body. So that is why ecto word is used. Ecto means outside. So ectoparasites means on the surface they will be causing infection. These again are triploblastic, means they're going to be having mesoderm, ectoderm and endoderm. And if I draw a segment on their body, they can be giving me two equal parts. That is where they are bilaterally symmetrical. They have coelom, which is, or they have the body cavity which is developed from the mesoderm, and that is why they are eucoelomates or coelomates. They have a structure called as parapodia, because of which they move. As you can see here, these are parapodia. The small structures or appendages that you see is normally used for movement from one place to another. There are many other animals in which suckers are used, like the leech normally has suckers on it, because of which it actually moves from one place to another. As you can see here, both the ends of this has suckers, so it absorbs on the surface and then it starts moving from one place to another. The examples are Nereus, leech and earthworm. So these are the ones which belong to phylum Annelida. Next phylum, phylum Arthropoda. The word arthro means joint and poda means legs. So these are the animals whose legs looks as if they are being joined to one another. This is the phylum which has the highest number of animals, and these animals can actually cover the largest number of habitats. So you can find these animals from oceans to mountains. You can find it in all different places. That is why they contain the largest number of animals. These are the animals which have three layers. So triploblastic, ectoderm, endoderm, mesoderm. They have true body cavity, so they are eucoelomates. And if one axis or if a line is drawn, you can divide them into two equal halves, so they are bilaterally symmetrical. And they also have segments on their body. These are the animals whose exoskeleton or whose outermost layer on the body, that is exoskeleton, is going to be made up of chitin. You must have heard this word before. Chitin is normally the one which forms the cell wall of fungus. So this is seen in these arthropodas also, where the external layer of the body is going to be very tough. That is mainly because it's made up of chitin, and they are unisexual, which means that you can differentiate them into male and female animal. The examples are crab, spider, scorpion, millipede. Now if you see in all these four pictures, if you look at the appendages, if you look at the legs of these, okay, you will find that they are in tiny pieces and it's quite crooked, where it appears as if there are these pieces which are being joined together to one another. That is why it belongs to arthropoda. The other examples include centipede, cockroach, butterfly and honeybee. That also contains, if you look at the appendages or the legs, you will understand why it is coming under the arthropoda group. Okay, and if you see in the first picture, you will find that there are segments also on the body. The same thing will be seen in others as well. Coming to the next one, phylum Mollusca. The word mollusca basically means soft bodied. That means all those animals who have the body which is quite soft and slimy, they are included in the group or the phylum of Mollusca. This is the second largest phylum. I told you Arthropoda is the first phylum which has the highest number. After that you will be having this group or this phylum of Mollusca. Most of the mollusks which you find, they are going to be aquatic, whereas there are very few which are terrestrial. Okay, this again, the animal is triploblastic, which means it's going to be containing ectoderm, endoderm and mesoderm. It is eucoelomate, which means that the body cavity is going to be made up of mesoderm. It is not segmented. You do not have segments in these animals, and they're very soft. Other than snail, if you eliminate snail, the remaining animals, they have bilateral symmetry. That means their body can be divided into two equal halves. Here in the mollusks, the body can be divided into three parts. You have the foot, you have the head, and you have the visceral mass. So foot and head, obviously you must have understood. Visceral mass means the body which is present, or the part which is just beneath the shell. So these animals normally contain shells. The shells, maybe internal shells will be there or external shells will be there, but they have shells. So the presence of shells can also be considered as one major characteristic because of which you can classify them under the phylum of Mollusca. Okay, so the visceral mass is basically the part which is covered under the shell. These also are unisexual. That means you will have male and females in this. The examples here are bivalve, which is like bivalve means two shells, or it's basically called as the oyster. You have the snail and you have the octopus. Phylum Echinodermata. Now the word echino means spiny or spines, and dermata means skin. So those animals who have the spines present on the body are normally called as echinoderms, or they are being clubbed under this phylum of Echinodermata. These are the ones which are normally found in the ocean. They are triploblastic. Triploblastic, again and again this word is coming, which means it's going to be having three layers: ectoderm, endoderm, mesoderm. They are eucoelomates. They have the body cavity which is formed from the mesoderm, and obviously they are going to be radially symmetrical. Radially symmetrical means that I will be having many equal parts in this. Okay, but if you look at the larval stages, that means when they are in the form of larva, they will be bilateral, and later on as they grow up into adults, they become radially symmetrical. They normally move from one place to another with the help of tube feet. These are the tube feet which you can see, and if you can see, there are spines also that is visible in this picture. Okay, these are the group of animals which have the property of regeneration. That means if one part of the body gets detached, they can actually again bring about that part. They can grow that part which has got detached. So that is the ability of regeneration. Okay, there are some animals which are sedentary. That means they don't move from one place to another, but most of it are, they move with the help of tube feet. So this is how the animals normally move from one place to another. You can see the tiny tube feet which is actually moving. So with the help of the movement of these tube feet, they can move from one place to another. So the examples are starfish, sea urchin, brittle star, sea cucumber. The most important example is the starfish. Coming to the phylum Hemichordata. The body of these animals, they are divided into three parts. You have the proboscis, the collar and the trunk. The proboscis is the part which contains the notochord. The remaining part, that means the collar and the trunk, does not contain notochord, and that is the main reason why you are using the term hemichordata. Hemi means half. In the entire body, the only part which contains notochord is the proboscis. That means half of the body contains notochord, half does not. That is why it is called hemichordata. This is also called as the acorn worm. Why? Because it normally matches with the acorn nut. That is why it is called as the acorn worm. Okay. Now these are the animals which even have pharyngeal gill slits. As you can see in the picture, they have pharyngeal gill slits. Some of them are unisexual, that is you may have male and female, but some of them are hermaphrodite, which means that they'll be having both male and female together in one single body. Okay, there are examples like balanoglossus or sarcoglossus. These from that one example which I gave, that is balanoglossus is like a connecting link between chordates and non-chordates. So hemichordata is one such phylum which is believed to be the link between chordates and non-chordates, because it's having one character of the chordate and the remaining is non-chordate. So phylum hemichordata is believed to be a connecting link between chordates and non-chordates. So this is a chart which will help you to revise all that was done today. So you have the 9 phylums which we did is being written on the first column of phylum, and then based on the 5 characteristics that we've learned, the criteria used for classification, these characteristics of each phylum is written. It is important that you actually go through each phylum and read about them. You should understand and read the text properly to understand the characteristics of all. But to learn it for the exam, it will be very simple if you learn it in this format. That is, you make a chart, and if you learn it, it becomes very simple to remember it. So this is how it will be simple if you learn all the phylums which we did today according to this method. I hope the 9 phylums that we discussed today is clear. In the next class we will be discussing phylum of chordata. Thank you.